Traveller, why are you here in the wilds of Wirral asking questions of dead men? Do you think they have answers greater than your own? Do you trust these men of ages past, their stories of chivalry, their lessons of moral codes they say we should all live by? Do you think that their lost voices speak louder than the whispers of the trees and the scream of the gulls of these shores? Here they call me wild man and woodwoes. They call the creatures of this place ettins and worms. They call this paradise a wilderness because it's not trust in their livery. Fine. Ask your questions of the dead. Hear their stories. Interrogate the spirits remembered by this place. And unearth the memories that the land holds and see if you find your answers on your quest. Traveller, look around you. Search the landscapes of the wilderness of Wirral, for there is hidden a portal to the other places, where the men that you seek reside. When you find it, enter it, if you dare.
Who rouses this old king from his slumber? What? I'd only hear a faint breathing through this window in time. No matter, only those in great need would wake the sleeping regent, for people say that I, King Arthur, will rise only to save my people in times of peril. So let me give the advice I can, a prophet sways of time to ease your plight. I will give wisdom from the ages, the tale of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. It's a hero's journey of valor and bravery, a question of chivalric values, knightly virtues, and our social mores. A test of hero's honor in the face of temptation and danger. You see, I expect my knights of the Round Table to be brave, courteous, loyal, and generous. They must protect the weak, uphold justice, and always strive to be a noble example to others. And this tale begins at my court in Camelot, a Christmastide feast for my knights. I was aimed to whet my appetite with stories of knightly deeds, marvellous tales, or a jest between comrades. And this day I was not disappointed, for in came an unnerving stranger, his enormous figure clad all in green, the colour of elfin-kind, with hair and skin the same. He marvelled at the reputation of our court, and then levelled a challenge, a Christmas jest, that any man brave enough to take up his axe and strike him just once, and in a year's time he would return the blow. Now not one of my knights stood forward, so I accepted the challenge myself. Yet young Gawain decreed that he would take my place, as his years were not worth as much as mine. And this I of course knighted him for his fealty. And indeed Gawain took up the axe, striking the man's head clean off. Though his blood ran freely, the knight's body didn't shudder. Instead, he stood up, grasped his head, and reminded the youth of the challenge. Gawain should meet him at the Green Chapel in a year's time, and he would return the blow. And with this he galloped away. And the court, highly entertained by this true marvel and jest, we continued our feast. Though Gawain's burden was heavy, he bore it with bravery of a true knight. Chivalry and honour are the foundations of a just and noble society. They guide us to act with courage, integrity, and respect. Chivalry isn't just about great deeds. It's about everyday actions, helping those in need, standing up for what's right, and treating others with dignity. Honor is the compass that directs us through life's challenges. It reminds us to stay true to our word and to each other. In a world where power often corrupts, chivalry and honor serve as our guiding lights, ensuring that justice and virtue prevail. Traveller, I have a question for you. How can you, in your world, uphold the ideals of chivalry and honor to build a more just and compassionate society?
So, traveller, you know the tale of my bargain. I won't deny it lay heavy on my heart, a drunken jest. But as an honourable man, what could I do? I would not shrink from my fate. The year rolled on, through spring, summer, until with autumn came All Hallows Day, and I left the court, though many knights tried to dissuade me, muttering that such a gallant knight deserved a better fate than to be hewn into pieces by an elfish man. I wandered the land for many days. I passed through the Isle of Anglesey, fording across Holyhead until I reached the wilderness of Wirral, loved by neither god nor man. Yes, I engaged in wondrous feats. I fought Ettins, wolves, even wild men. Then I suffered, alone and frozen in the icy rain. Soon I sought shelter as a castle, welcomed by the lord and lady there, and I feasted with them until Christmastide. Yet by St. John's Day, I was ready to leave and asked my host if he knew of the Green Chapel where my fated bargain was to take place. Lord Bertilac, for that was my host's name, said that it was a mere 2 miles away, and his man would guide me on New Year's Day if I agreed to spend the next 3 days with them to rest, and his wife and her older companion would keep me company. And he also suggested a wager. On each of the 3 days, whatever the Lord won during his daily hunt would be mine, as hunting was still common in our day for both food and entertainment. And whatever I won during my day of rest would go to him, for he knew well how to make sport. And I, of course, accepted. On the first day, the Lord returned with his spoils of the hunt, and indeed did as he was promised and gave me a deer. Yet that day I'd spent with his wife. She had given me a kiss, and this I passed on to him fairly. The next day the Lord returned with a boar for me, and again I received a kiss from his wife, which again I passed on to him as our bargain decreed. Yet on the third day she begged that I teach her of my knowledge of courtly love, as she heard I was the most honourable and well-versed knight in the land. And indeed, this being true, I refused to betray my host's hospitality, so instead she asked a token of me to remember me by. Yet as a man travelling alone, I had nothing to give, so she offered me her own token, her green lace girdle, which I at first refused until she told me of the magic it was infused with. Whoever bore the gift could not be slain by another, whatever their magic might be, and this I could not refuse, considering my fate. And she beseeched that I should never reveal its secret, especially to her lord. And this I promised her. And I'm still ashamed to say that I approached my bargain with the Lord that evening and gave him what I had won that day first, more kisses. And in the return, the Lord openly gave me his own spoils.
the skin stripped from the fox Reynard from his day of hunting. Yet, to my shame, I did not relinquish the secret gift, the magical girdle. Instead, I kept this for my own and broke all covenant, despite my host's honesty and his hospitality. Something ill-befitting to a knight supposedly renowned for his courtesy, valour, and honour. And now I carry with me only shame. I knelt between the pillars of piety and my own paucity. I started my quest with such youthful pride, and now I'm humbled by facing the ultimate challenge, my own death, to uphold my courtly values. Yet, when staring at mortality, what man would not quake at the thought of the endless night, to never again see the sunrise or the first buds of spring? I've failed, and I'll carry this shame with me until my final days. And I will never again judge those who shy from a challenge through fear, or those who miss the high bar set for them by others because of sheer misfortune. Can we truly live up to the ideals we hold dear, or are we all doomed to fall short? Perhaps true virtue lies in simple acts of kindness and forgiveness rather than such grand gestures. Traveller, where in your life do you see too much being demanded of people, by others or by themselves? How can you use my lesson in humility for the bettering of the world around us?
So, you've heard of my bargain with the young knight. I, Lord Bertilac, gave him all that he had promised in goodwill, and offered him a servant to take him forth to the Green Chapel to meet his fate. And so, Gawain reached the chapel, and he met the Green Knight. The Green Knight took one swing, at which Gawain flinched, but he was left untouched. Then the knight took a second, and again he left no mark. Yet the third time, the blade swiped at Gawain's neck, and blood trickled over his shoulder. As for what he did not realize was I, Bertilac, am the very same Green Knight. And this whole ruse had been instructed by my wife's companion, who was in fact the sorceress, Morgana Le Fay. And so, my 3 vert blows were fitting punishment. The first 2, Gawain was left unharmed, and he kept our bargain and gave everything he had won to me the first 2 days. Yet the third blow hit its mark and drew blood. A just punishment for hiding the girdle and dishonouring his name. Yet I allowed him to leave with his life, unmarred, as he proved his valour and took only kisses from my so-called wife. His only failing was his lack of courage in the face of his own death. The only burden he carried forward was his own shame, and he returned to court wearing the girdle as a symbol of his humility forevermore. Human frailty. I can't help but find mirth at watching them strive for godly ideals. How they try to cast aside their primal, animalistic urges and true human nature. I admire this in them, the fight to uphold the laws and mores that their societies teach for the greater good. Yet in the face of death, they can't be separated from the animals, from Reynard, the fox who uses all cunning to confuse and confound his pursuers, or even from the hounds who smell the blood of the chase and pursue their prey, irrespective of the constructed moralities of men. Now, traveller, it's easy to be preoccupied with the lessons of virtue, nay, piety, perfection, when your bellies are full from feasting and you're warm in curtained beds, sheltered by the walls of rich courts. Yet when thrown out into the wilderness and confronted by pains of hunger and the ice of the cold in your bones, you see the rawness of nature. There's no longer a question of virtue and honour. The question is now of life and death. Then is the real challenge a question of character? Traveller, who is to be the judge and jury, the arbiter of truth in your life? How do you balance your own primal nature and still strive to uphold the greater good?